Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The speech that I am about to make is much different from the speech I would have made if this were 3 weeks before. Of course, as we all know, the globe is now confronting what Chancellor of Germany, Angela Merkel, has described as the greatest global crisis since the ending of the Second World War 75 years ago. This government, sir, is confident that we will get through this, sir. We have the leadership that will get us through, and we have the confidence that the people of this country, having gone through other harsh circumstances, sir, including slavery of our ancestors, will also get through. So 3 weeks ago I would have spoken of matters such as the campaign by the National Council of Substance Abuse to reduce illegal and substance abuses in Barbados and misuse of drugs, and efforts to curb both the demand and supply, and of the National Anti-Drug Plan for the next 5 years, which is being formulated and finalized for Cabinet's approval. I would have spoken, sir, in terms of the fire service and the initiatives of the fire service and the move to the temporary fire service locations and the soon-to-be commenced construction of a new fire service station in the Pines, sir, and wish to commend the fire officers, sir, in the smooth transition of the move from Probin Street to other fire stations, Worthing and Arch Hall, and the temporary fire service station in the Pines, sir, and their efforts in making this transition seamless, sir. And of course the efforts of the fire service to continuously educate the public in fire prevention, the need to provide insurance for your property to protect yourself, and the improvement of the customer service platform at the fire service. So I would have spoken in more detail on the government industrial school and the initiatives of this government to reform child justice legislation and how we treat children who are at risk and who come into conflict, sir, with the criminal justice system, and new legislative platform which Cabinet has noticed, sir, and the consultancy which has now completed, and we're waiting the consultants' report in how to implement the child justice legislation, sir, to finally get rid of a centuries-old piece of legislation that was essentially passed by a colonial parliament, sir, to keep the children of poor black people in their place, sir. Would have spoken, sir, about the release of 13 wards as I, as Minister, had the authority to do so within the last 6 months, and they're going into the new Fadvance Court, sir, which the Honourable Member for Christchurch West Central would have spoken to this Parliament about when his ministry was in the well, and to wish those children good luck, sir, and to encourage them that their life, they have a whole future ahead of them, even though they may have got in trouble with the law at the ages of 13, 14 and 15. Sir, would have spoken in greater detail on the issue of immigration, sir, and the immigration department, sir. But even so, sir, I still wish to praise the immigration officers, sir, in this country who have made a Herculean effort, sir, with one accord, both people who live in Barbados and visitors to Barbados speak to the greater efficiency of the immigration department since this government has come into office, how they are more customer friendly, sir. The opening now of the immigration department on Saturday mornings to treat to customers, sir. So if there was an award for most improved government department in this country, in the last 21 months, sir, immigration would have to get it, sir. And tribute, sir. You know, a lot of the officers, sir, especially the management, think I'm too hard on them, sir. But I think they've come to understand the kind of demands that I make on them and appreciate that. And, sir, I cannot praise them higher, sir, on their efforts. The task is far from over, sir. But we will continue. We've spoken more about the full implementation of the kiosk, sir, and bringing Barbados into the 3rd century of this decade. And now the online ED card process has been completed, sir, and is ready for launching as an alternative to use of the kiosk, and the abolition of the ED card, sir, in October last year. And plans to digitalize the whole process of applications for immigration, which has started. Institutional strengthening of the department, which is ongoing, sir. All of these, under other circumstances, I would have spoken about a bit more, sir. And of course, the agreement of the Cabinet that we need to expand our population, sir, with the approval of the Populations Commission's report by the Cabinet 2 weeks ago, that this country needs more people, population of perhaps between 400,000, 500,000, to become more efficient and optimal, sir. And the role of immigration now, and immigration policy and legislation in gaining that expansion by way of citizens expansion, economic migration, allowing people who can be productive and more efficient, have skills and can create employment into this country, sir. There'll be other opportunities later on to speak to that, sir, and the post office and the study to make the postal services more efficient, sir, and the postal services being under pressure, sir, admittedly so in terms of postal delivery, having been part of the modernization program of the public service in the latter part of 2018, sir, unavoidably so as part of our ingrown Brett program. Would have been able to speak, sir, more in terms of probation and the institutional strengthening of that department that is contemplated to allow more for community service platforms, sir, which you are extremely familiar with, sir, both as a sociologist, sir, and a leading attorney at law, criminal attorney at law and otherwise. The need to expand the community service platform of this country, community penalties, restoration orders, to giving back to the families and victims of crime, sir. Role of probation in that, and the role that probation will play, sir, in the diversion strategies towards young persons, sir, who need to be brought back to Christian understanding, sir. And the prisons, sir, in terms of the acreage under crops and being plowed up, 10 acres of land planted in crops, more than ever before, 50 acres of land in grassland designated primary for grazing and livestock population, so that the prison has become more self-sufficient in terms of the food supply to prisoners, sir. And the proposals to carry out the manifesto promises of the Barbados Labour Party in 2018 for alternative prison sentencing to lessen the prison population, so that those who come into problems and conflict with the courts, as you well know, for minor offences can be kept out of prison more, so that they don't come into contact now with hardened criminals and become worse, and therefore there will be a reduction in recidivism, whereby 60% of prison population, people who come out of prison, get back in trouble with the criminal justice system within the first 44 months of coming out of prison. But, sir, would have spoken to, sir, as I still have to speak to in terms of reminding Barbadians that there is a hurricane season that starts in less than 2.5 months' time that we still have to prepare for, sir. With all the challenges that we have, an annual event that takes up half of the year, and what we have been doing, sir, in terms of preparing ourselves, our Barbadians, for this occasion. And we hope, sir, you know, the Lord doesn't give you any more than you can bear, sir. We hope that the hurricane season this year will be mild as it was last year, sir. But we are planning, sir, and I have met with all the various ministries involved in hurricane preparation and the committees formed under those ministries and departments of ministries during February and this month, sir. And as we speak, sir, last week, this time we would have had a meeting of the Emergency Management Advisory Council, which has been set up by law to meet, sir, and under the last government that used to meet in July, sir, when the hurricane season started from last year. We have been meeting in February and March, sir. All of that is part of our planning, sir, under the leadership, under the deputy leadership as well of the Honourable Member of Christchurch West, sir. And we would have been able to speak more on institutional strengthening of the Department of Emergency Management, to increase its capacity to develop and execute comprehensive disaster management plans, sir, plans that have been approved by the Cabinet last year, sir, and to build more resilience among our communities. The efforts we have made and the success in strengthening disaster emergency organizations throughout the island and getting a greater cadre of volunteers to serve in disasters, and that's part as well of the Youth Advanced Corps that has been established by this government. Part of that is creating a set of young people who you can rely on, especially to help the most vulnerable in our communities, people with disabilities or people living by themselves, to build capacity among young people in terms of volunteerism in this country, which is so necessary. So all of that, but the reality of the times, sir, is that this country, like every other country in the world, faces COVID-19, sir. And, sir, you know, the Lord is our refuge and our strength, as Psalm 46 says, verses 1 and 2. Very present help in trouble. And therefore, we not fear, be disciplined and orderly. And sir, the Lord, at this time of our development, at this time of crisis, sir, has been good enough to help Barbadians realize that they should elect the Honourable Member for St. Michael North East to be Prime Minister and political leader of this country, sir. And in her wisdom to choose a cabinet, sir, which at this time has faced challenges on the economic front, on the sociological front, on the front in terms of addressing law and order, sir, and now on the front of addressing this unprecedented health challenge, sir. A cabinet, sir, of which I am proud to be a part. And, sir, a cabinet comprising leadership at Ministry of Health level of the Honourable Member for the City, sir, who brings a background, sir, in military training, which is so necessary at this time, sir. The Lord has found it fit to bring to Barbados political leadership of this quality at the time, sir. And we need the strength of the people. I have no doubt that when the people of Barbados sit down and think through this crisis, sir, and realize that judgment and reason must be brought to the forefront, and not emotion and panic and reactionary, and not to be driven by reactions, sir, which is not thought out. We will pull through this and be stronger for it. So the fact of the matter, as I said, sir, is the leadership, sir. And when you look at the leadership that our Honorable Prime Minister has displayed in the last 2 months on this issue, sir, not to mention her leadership and the leadership of this cabinet and this parliament, sir, on all the other issues, the economy, sir, everything else, sir, that dealing with the debt, having found a country that's the third most indebted country per capita in the world at the end of May in 2018, sir, and how we have dealt with these issues, sir, we will pull through. And as the Honourable Member for Christchurch West said in his speech earlier today, sir, imagine if the other side, the Democratic Labour Party, as it was constituted in the 10 last years, was in office, sir. What would happen? A former Prime Minister who would, as would have been his habit, sir, try to put this issue within the perspective of Plato and Socrates and Cicero, sir, and intellectualize this crisis, sir, when the whole matter dealt with action, decisive action, sir. And that has been done by this government, sir. What would have happened in those, if it were those who were in charge in the 10 last years, sir? Undoubtedly, some of those in the cabinet would have looked to see how they could benefit financially from it, sir, would have formed some companies, sir, probably bringing in the toilet paper and the sanitizers and the Lysol to try and make a few more millions from it, more than what they made in those 10 years, sir, through corruption and corrupt practices and bribery, sir. That is what would have happened. So, sir, the Lord is good, sir, and we have prepared, sir. We were one of the first countries in terms ahead of our preparation, even though, sir, we have only started to get cases, imported cases this week. $30 million, sir, has been allocated as of now, and surely more will be, to address this issue, this dilemma, sir, within an IMF program to expand our hospital facilities and our medical treatment capacity and our isolation centres, sir, whether at the hospital at Enmore in St. Lucie, at the Scantlebury Centre, at the old naval base, sir. All of this proactive steps taken, unlike what has happened in many countries in the developed world, which have a lot more financial and economic resources and human resources than we have, sir. And, sir, I stand by every decision that this government, that this cabinet has made on this issue, sir. We have put protocols in place at every level, sir. And of course, as minister responsible for immigration at this time, sir, I've been party to those protocols in terms of arrivals at the airport and the port workers and the immigration workers and how we've dealt with it. And it is testimony, sir, to our efforts and decision making that Barbados was one of the last 27 countries out of 191 countries in the world to be struck with the virus. And that is not by happen chance, sir. That don't happen, sir, in an open economy, small island like Barbados, just by chance, sir. It is because of the efforts we have made, sir, and we will continue to make those efforts to keep to as minimum as possible the spread of this virus within our communities, sir. As there will be, sir. The medical evidence is that there will be, sir, spread. But we will keep it to a minimum, sir. And I urge Barbadians, as we have all urged, to continue to look at the science. Do not panic. God will be our refuge and our strength, sir. That the science says that 80% of those in this country who get it will have mild symptoms, sir. There will be some who will have it, but who will not even know that they had it, sir. It is, and the statistics show this, sir, because as of last night, there were about 250,000 people in the world who have come down with this virus, sir. 10 million deaths. My math tells me that is 4%, sir. And that percent, of course, is higher among the more vulnerable, those over 70 years of age, those who have non-communicable diseases, sir. That is the truth. Are more susceptible, and we have put protocols in place for the elderly, sir. We've told them, don't go out if you don't have to. You know, the churches, sir, have come on board, and yes, our church population is mainly the elderly, women. That is the truth. And yes, we thank the church for understanding this, that they have to curtail church services and other such services and bring them online. And we will get through this. Life will be different after the epidemic passes, as it will pass. And we have to prepare for that. And we would have heard the Honorable Member for St. Philip's South speak today on the issue, the member for the Minister of Agriculture, in terms of increasing our food sovereignty, sir, which we have to do. We can't delay it anymore. We import too much. So that good will come out of this crisis, sir. Because you can't waste a crisis. You have to see how we can reform. There'll probably be more people working from home in a future Barbados, sir. The prison, sir, which falls under my Ministry of Home Affairs, has full protocols in place to deal with this in case a prisoner who is inside gets the virus, sir, in terms of isolation and reduction of visitors to the prison, and the testing, sir, of those who would be coming into the prison in the future, sir. The protocol is in place to test anyone coming into prison in the future to ensure that they do not have the virus, sir, and protection of the staff members, sir, which is of paramount importance. Protection of the staff members at all the departments of the Ministry of Home Affairs. It's of paramount importance, sir. And yesterday I felt it important enough before I attended the cabinet meeting, sir, to attend the briefing which was being undertaken to all the immigration officers, sir, by the Ministry of Health officials and others, sir, on this, because clearly, sir, protection of our staff, of our people, of the public is of paramount importance, sir. But with that, sir, we also have to still have a country that we can live in, that we can survive in after the virus is gone, after vaccination is found for it, sir. Yes, this is the greatest health concern since the Spanish flu 100 years ago, I think in 1918, sir, when 1 million people, I think it was 10 million people, sir, globally died. Those far from that figure will die, sir. As I said, sir, as of yesterday, it was 10,000. And we cannot be hysterical. We have to keep judgment. And we call on Barbadians to maintain the judgment, to listen to the Ministry of Health officials, who I have full confidence in, sir. I've been at many meetings with them. I have full confidence in their ability, sir. Listen to the science. Go with the science, sir. And the reality is that Barbados must survive still after this. So issues of closing our borders, sir, some are saying we should have done and we ought to do, sir. And what happens then? Thousands go home in public sector, in private sector. How will they feed their children? When will we return to work, sir? If that were to happen now. Sir, how would people survive? Crime will undoubtedly increase if we were to do that. We still have to try and maintain normalcy as best as possible for as long as we could. Because if you were to close the borders, close down all offices, everybody stay at home, sir, when do you reopen, sir? No one knows how long this journey is going to be, sir. How long will you close the schools for? And sir, closing schools long, sir, I mean, the Tsar, wisely appointed by the Honorable Prime Minister, sir, has spoken about the experience of children in Sierra Leone who would have been sexually abused because they were away from school. The tripling of the rate of teenage pregnancies when the children were away from school. All of these are factors that a thinking government, responsible government, such as this government has to deal with in making these judgments calls. We ask the population, the people, to be with us, and we will survive this. The reality, sir, is that to close borders has not prevented the spread of coronavirus. Italy, I believe, was one of the first, if not the first, European country to close its borders. There now is the greatest spread. That did not stop it, sir. We have put in, sir, the protocols from Sunday now. Every person coming in from the United States, from UK, from Europe, will be tested, will be put in a quarantine for 14 days, sir. That is the markings of a responsible government, sir. But we will get through this, sir. We are confident that we will, sir. We ask people to stay the course. We ask people not to panic. We ask people to use their judgment rather than emotion. Because when you go now, buy out everything, sir, toilet papers, I don't know what for, sir, at this stage, when the issues get worse, whenever, sir, what is there, sir? And there are people, all our constituents, all of us have constituents among who can't go, who don't have the money to go and bulk shop now, sir, who will need supplies when they're most needed, sir. And they're the most vulnerable in our communities. So, sir, to wrap up, we ask the people to stay on board with us, sir. We will get through this, sir. I'm satisfied that this government has the leadership, has displayed the leadership, will continue to demonstrate the leadership, sir, that is required. And I have called, and I know, sir, that the vast majority of people have full confidence in the Prime Minister of this country and in this political administration to pull us through in our efforts to fight this global phenomenon. I thank you, sir.